Hey, everybody. We're live. It's Ken in his car trying to drive it from the passenger seat again.
Mm-hmm.
How's
Yes,
that going?
not so good.
No?
The force is not with him.
What's that?
The force is not with him.
No, it is not with him.
The plunger
What
keeps slipping off the gas.
I had a guy who we had to do an assessment on. Like, we'll get people who have been driving for years and years and years with hand controls, adaptive equipment in their cars. And then they go to buy a car or whatever. They want to get it switched over. And they go to hey, Dave, an approved installation place, and they just go, nope, I understand you've driven for 20 years with it, but you have to have a formal assessment, and I have to have a formal prescription in order to be able to do the install of your new stuff. So this guy comes, and he's, I don't know how old he is. It doesn't matter. And I said to him, so we say, so you've been driving with hand controls? He goes, yep. Where'd you get them? Amazon. Now, I don't know if you know what hand controls look like, but his were archaic. It was like that pulley lever, one for the brake and then one for the gas. And it was down low, down by his knee. And I'm like, holy jumping Jesus. And then he had a spinner knot on top of that. And it's like, how do they get away with selling that shit?
Well, it's probably a third party going through Amazon.
But I don't know that what people don't understand is when you modify a vehicle, you have to let the government know, the transportation, and you got to let your insurance company know. Now, even for something as simple as a paint job, you have to let the government know because it has to show different on your vehicle ownership for obvious reasons. Because a cop could pull up your plate and say, oh, okay, it's a 2019 Equinox Black. And I've gone and I've wrapped it in navy blue. And he'd look at it and go, and that would be cause to pull you over, right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know this.
Oh, yeah. Like see, I talked to a police officer 4 years ago when I think it was probably last season or second last season of the show. And I was talking to him about spinner knobs because spinner knobs on steering wheels are very common. Do you know I can't get a straight answer? I can't get a straight answer from anyone other than the fact of what they normally will rest upon is the answer of you have to be able to keep care and control of your vehicle at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And any modification has to be reported.
Now, I assume if you add like a roof rack, you don't have to report that.
No, because you can take a roof rack off.
Okay, so
and
if you can
that is
remove
considered,
it, then it's different.
Sure, because that's considered not adventurous.
Well, it's got nothing to do with the care and control of the vehicle, right? A roof rack.
No, because I think to a certain extent they have to be licensed by Transport Canada or approved by Transport Canada. Like there's just some stuff that comes through that we have in our vehicles that has to be okayed by Transport Canada. I think trailer hitches is probably one of them. You know, you've got to get your trailer licensed legally.
Makes sense.
It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. So anyway, what's going on with you guys? What's new? What do you say? What do you know? Who do you know?
The cat got spayed today.
I saw that.
Oh, you were at the vet?
No.
Yeah, no. So the cat got spayed, which is great because first day of spring, she started howling because she went into heat. First day of spring, she went into heat. So we had 2 days of her howling before her actual appointment to get spayed today. So at least tonight we won't have her howling.
You can't touch them you're not allowed to touch them when they're in heat, are you?
Well, they did. They
Oh,
they went in and scooped it all out, and
yeah.
you know, it's a done deal, and she seems fine. So,
Hey, Dan. Hey, Mayor Claude. So did someone raise an interest rate today?
the U.S. did.
They did, eh?
Yes, 25 basis points.
Is that a surprise?
No,
It's
no. I
not, eh?
mean,
After all that's gone down, it's not a surprise.
no. There's a reason why I don't think it's a surprise. I'm pretty sure it's a situation where, yes, a lot of the government wanted there to be a pause, but if there was a pause, it would have spelled that the banking crisis is worse than it is. And maybe it is as bad as it is, but it would have signaled that there's problems in the banking system and it could have caused panic. So they kind of had to do 25 basis points for that reason alone, just so that way their people are not panicking about it. But now, next time, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a pause at the next meeting. And their verbiage today even kind of said that, they weren't as hawkish as they have normally been with saying we're going to be pushing more. They're basically saying we're going to put them out now as needed. So I think you'll see a pause next time around.
I don't understand. Like, it's like the populace, the people who, who it all gets passed down to, we're getting double whacked. Get double whacked by the interest. So one of them is the interest rates, and the second one is this stupid inflation costing everything more.
Right.
Right? Because now it's like, not necessarily are the wages going to keep in line in order to maintain the parallel movement of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now you add, so we're losing, so folks lose there. Now you lose because the money that over here that they have just done to secure the deposits, well, it comes out of the same bank. Maybe not the same bank account, but it comes out of the same bank, and that's the bank of the government,
Mm-hmm.
which is funded by us
Well,
and
yeah.
employers and all that. And it's like, where does this end? Like, when does it end? And it just doesn't.
Well, there is some good news. Because of the banking crisis itself, a lot of the banks in the US, they're starting to look at the requirements for loans, and they're tightening up those requirements, making it much harder for people to get loans. So that in itself, making it harder to get loans, harder to get credit, is having that effect of slowing down the economy and accomplishing some of the effects that the Fed had been hoping to accomplish. So it is actually, it's kind of a side blessing that's happening that may actually help the Fed long term get towards their inflation goals.
So what you're saying is they are implementing a stress test for real estate, which is what we did years ago.
Yeah, and they're making it harder. So, what you needed to qualify for even something as simple as a credit card before all of this happened may not get you a credit card today because of the tests. And with mortgages, it's even more. And even in Canada, we increased the value. We increased how much you need to be able to prove for our stress test. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of one of them situations where it's going to be more difficult to get it. But at the same time, if you do qualify, then you're probably not going to be somebody who a couple of months later, if there's a rate hike, is going to be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. Are we getting the feeling that there's? I mean, so obviously the banks are getting the banking system is getting hit first, and I think that that's kind of the big kind of woo. What's next to fall? Is it the housing? And are all these banks going to foreclose on people and start holding all these properties, and then the banks can't afford to float these properties, and then now what's going to happen type of deal?
well, I
Or
mean,
is BlackRock going to come in and buy all the real estate up?
no, it's a situation right now where if you take, for example, CIBC, they recently had a report that came out just mentioning that more than 20% of the people who have mortgages with them are at a point where they're not even being able to meet the interest with their payments.
Oh no.
So it's a situation where they got a couple of choices. One, they can say, too bad, You have to make it or we're going to foreclose. But then you've got, if you have 20% of people in that situation, if you were to do that, that's going to screw you as a bank, because that means that your bad loans are going to go through the roof, and you probably don't have enough money put aside for that amount of bad loans. So that could actually really hurt the bank. What they're doing is they're taking the amortization and they're just really pushing it out. Like some people are getting them out to like 60 years.
60 years.
So, you know, in the long term, the bank makes a crap load of money because that interest just keeps building and building. And they're just basically getting free money, and you're not even paying off your house. You're just paying the bank all kinds of free money. And you still have to eventually pay off that house, you know, or pass it on to your kids, and then they can continue trying to pay off that house.
It was interesting. We happened to just sort of, as I say, we don't listen to a lot of, I don't know if it's the influencers or what. Like, we remember way back when we were very engaged with listening to Anthony Pompliano,
right.
And we happened to catch one of his recent podcasts with Raoul Paul, and you know, him talking about all of this, and you know, one thing that one of them said was, you know, as you said with the foreclosures and stuff, he said, you know, it would be in your interest, if that's the way that you know you're going, is to sell the house before it gets to the foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
It does you much more benefit to do it that way than to go down and sit still.
Right. I think the problem, though, too, is if you sell the house, you still have to find a place to live. And with the vacancy rate as low as it is, that can almost be like pulling teeth.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And you're jumping from one pot into another type of deal. But which is the lesser of two evils?
Well,
you know, because, you know, I mean, if you get fairly creative, you can always, you know, find friends or family to get you through the tough spot, and hopefully you can. Hopefully, I mean, not everyone's in a fortunate situation like that. But you know, there's different ways to do it.
I mean, there's definitely different ways to do it. I mean, worst case scenario, you could be living in your car, but it's just one of those considerations you have to put in there as well. Yeah, that's it. The freaking Oracle's been kicked out of the house.
He's actually sitting in his washroom right now.
Van life.
He doesn't need a washroom in the car. He just has Depends.
Oh.
I fill the washer fluid jug, and it takes care of the rest. It's all good.
Oh dear. Doesn't that streak your window?
I went to, did I tell you about going for that CT scan and they injected that dye into me?
You did last week.
Right. So I went to the doctor for the follow-up yesterday.
Okay.
And I said, why the 2 sets of CT scans? He goes, 2 sets. I said, yeah, they put the blue dye in me. He goes, they should never have done that.
Why? Wow.
He goes, the good news, and I'm not even in his office. My butt's heading towards the chair to sit down. And he says, well, I've got good news. Well, I get a lollipop, you know, I don't know. You know, he says, no, you don't have cancer. And I'm like, what? Who said I had cancer in the first place? Or there was any, it's like this doctor's, and it's like, I can see how these doctors make money. It's like turn and burn. I was in there for 10 minutes. Next person was in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, next person was like, what the hell? But you're talking about the windshield washer fluid. Now I got to spend all day Sunday filling up this container with pee to go and get analyzed. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you know anybody that's pregnant? You could get a really funny test result.
I don't know. I wouldn't mess with your pee bottle just because.
That would be hilarious.
You're gonna dip in a pork chop in it or something.
They'd be like, Mr. Danter, you seem to have high estrogen in your urine. What's going on? You could be pregnant.
Let's not go there.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. You see those rubber gloves snap so fast that I'd be doing the half-mile dash.
Well,
Get me the fuck out of here. Canned.
or you could just put a couple of dead pollywogs in there and say, I don't know what happened.
Honest to God, I told you I had something wrong. I didn't realize, Anyway, love. What was it? Love. What was it in the United States? The Love Canal or Love? Remember when they had that nuclear?
Like 3 Mile Island? Or are you talking about that water thing recently?
No, years ago, years and years and years ago, wasn't it the Love?
Well, I don't know. There was I only know about the 3 Mile Island one. There was probably more, but
Oh dear. Anyway, I got nothing. I got nothing on that. But the important thing was, and which is interesting, and there's two trains of thoughts on this, is that when all this shit's going down, isn't it interesting how it shows people go to turn towards something and start to look at something that is more stable, like Bitcoin or gold, or no, I'm going to get this wrong. GIC. I'm going to go for treasury bonds because those things are taking a kick right now, aren't they? But isn't it interesting how they go back and it's like, oh, Bitcoin's not looking so bad right now. And I'm telling you that DCA stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah, well, if Bitcoin moves above 30,000, then it could be an interesting show.
I don't know that it's going to get there this time. I mean, eventually it's going to go back up, and why? Why do all these conspiracy people come out and start to say, well, I wonder if it wasn't just, it's the feds and it's the these governments that actually created this for times just like this, and that it builds an argument for the CBDC, which I personally think if we get to the CBDC, we're done.
Well, Bitcoin did come out during the housing crash in the U.S. in 2008.
Yeah, and it is designed in such a way that it's supposed to do well during these type of crises.
And it's cryptography, right?
Yeah, proof of work in a way. Well, I don't want to say that because that makes it sound like staking, but it's just sort of proof in the pudding.
Right.
Yeah, don't get me going on XRP, Gary.
Not a good pump. What are you talking about?
Well, it's got to do a little bit more of a big pump.
Oh, well, so you should have DCA'd down low and then...
This is a family show. I can't show, but you can read between the lines, right?
Holy banana bread.
There you go. Well, yeah, okay, so what about it? Weren't we all young and foolish in crypto at one? Well, most of us young and foolish in crypto.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Well, I'm staying put until we have some regulation.
Well, you're doing well with what you're doing with the stocks and stuff. Like,
yeah.
What happened to that comparison you did with? Oh shit! You did it on a Thursday show, didn't you?
Maybe.
Oh Jesus! I really got to write some of this stuff down before I open my mouth.
Are you thinking of like a battle? Because sometimes I do battles on Thursdays.
Oh no, you did a poll about the interest rates, right?
I've done lots of polls on interest rates.
Oh, what was the interest? Oh, for God's sake! I just dig deeper, don't I?
I'm keeping my mouth shut about polls.
Yeah, well, I can see the support I'm getting from you, and that's why I just trying to, take the hit for both of us. I mean, golly, it's not cool. It's not cool.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I mean, right now I have a current poll that's running, but that's just to see what my next deep dive is. And I think right now it's between Scotiabank and Ryokan, and Scotiabank is winning by about 2%. But people have until Friday to vote on that one. And then that'll be next Thursday's video. Tomorrow's video is Sun Life versus Manulife.
Manulife, yeah.
So that's
And I remember from your other video how Manulife was kicking it out of the park.
yeah. So maybe Sunfire's doing that too. You'll have to find out tomorrow.
Sun Life.
Yeah, but today I did something different for this morning.
And
I signed up for Chat GPT 4.
did you hear what's going on with that now?
Well, what's going on?
Yeah, I just read something. Was it the Morning Brew or Daily whatever? How they're now insinuating that Chat GPT, the 4th version, is giving out false information.
Maybe it's hard to say, but I actually let it write and direct my short for today. So I was like, I'm going to do a short, but I'm going to do what Chat GPT 4 tells me to do.
Well, that's kind of cool.
So it wrote everything, and it told me what images to put and where, and I just did it. Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Exactly what to do, and I just followed its instructions exactly.
I'm trying to find that thing on Chat GPT. The peak. It's in the peak. Once I get
there was a cryptocurrency release called GPT. I think it did pretty good.
Is it the same, going down the same thing?
Yeah, it's based off of that. Everybody's a whole bunch of people right now are building projects, hyping stuff like, Donald Trump was supposed to go to jail, so somebody came out with a token called Free Trump.
Wow.
People bought in. It's insane. There was like a lot of people that bought into it. I was like, really?
So it's the peak, and it's just called the peak. It's a publication I get every morning. It says the economy. Canada's annual inflation rate posted its largest deceleration since April of 2020, 2 weeks after the Bank of Canada pressed pause on rate hikes. In the world news, most experts say the U.S. federal raise. Well, okay, that's old news. Canada's biggest bank continues to blaze the trail for the return to work. By May, RBC employees will have to head to the office 3 to 4 days a week. What do you think about that?
I don't work for RBC, so I don't care. No, I mean, the pandemic's over. If a company decides that they want you to work at their location, then you have a choice. You either continue to work for the company and work at the location, or you go find another job. If you want to work from home and your company is saying that we're not going to let you work from home, you have to go get another job. And it sounds to me like they're being kind of reasonable by doing a hybrid, where you only have to be in like 3 or 4 days. So you're still getting at least 1 day at home.
You should see that there's some of this stuff that people are saying, well, look, because I've been working from home, I've let my babysitter go and I can't find childcare. Or, get this, I've sold my car because I don't need it anymore and it was an expense I didn't need. That's the reasons for not coming back into the office.
Well, you can buy a car. If
everybody else has to
it boils down to it. I mean, if they want you in the office and you've sold your car and you can't, well, then you probably need to look for another job. If they can't accommodate you. But I mean, they should give you time. Like if you have a serious thing, like let's say I fired my babysitter and I sold my car, well, how long will it take you to hire a babysitter and get yourself access to another vehicle? Well, maybe 3 months. Okay, come back in 3 months.
Well, what about the people who were hired during the cerveza sickness and were hired with a gray sort of area of you're able to work hybrid? Now all of a sudden, so they were hired that way. Now all of a sudden, they're being told to come into the office. Do they have a leg to stand on?
It really depends on the fine print, in their contract of employment. They'll want to go and check that out. Otherwise, if there's nothing in there saying that they could have their situation changed, then, that's when they want to take it up with the HR department.
Because there's some people, I know there's some people winning those battles.
Yeah, and sometimes you will. I mean, it doesn't hurt to fight.
Yeah.
But, you also have to be reasonable too, that if it's a situation you weren't hired as a work at home, like if you were originally hired to work in the office and because of the pandemic, you got to go home for a bit, it's not unreasonable for that company to expect you to come back. So, but I'm kind of surprised, only for the simple reason that I thought that this would be a good test drive for employers to sort of see how much they could save. Because, if you could cut the size of your office in half and save on all that rent by having people work at home, that's not a bad thing.
There's a guy in this group of whales that I've been chatting with online, and he owns a call center in the United States, and that's what he's done. He is slowly changing everything to remote work. And he said he's going to save a staggering amount on rent and insurance and da.
But that's assuming you can get out of the rent.
Yeah.
If that fixed overhead cost doesn't change, then you're pooched.
Yeah. Well, the last call center I was a supervisor in, our staff was about almost twice as big as the number of seats we had in our building. Because once we filled up our seats, then we just went to remote and we just kept building it up. And from what I understand, after I left there, they were trying to push more and more people to remote so they could eventually get rid of the building.
Yeah, you just need a small office in that town for, swapping out your PC if it breaks down or if you have a mic issue or this or that. That's what they have here. They have a very small office. There's maybe 12 desks with 12 computers for people that have internet issues at home. They can still come in and work at the center, but other than that, everybody's at home.
Do they get paid less wage if they don't come into the office and don't have the travel time and don't spend the time traveling and the expense of gas and parking and insurance?
Well, that would have to be up to the company, right? If you're hiring somebody remotely, you could say, if you work in the office, you get paid this. If you work remotely, you get paid this, taking into consideration some of those expenses. But that would come down to when you're hired, right? Whatever they offer you, if you accept it, that's your wage. So you don't have a leg to stand on if you get hired as a remote worker and then you find out somebody who goes into the office every day makes a bit more than you. You accept it. You don't have, this is something people don't understand, that when you're offered a job, you can still negotiate your salary. Nobody does. A lot of people don't. They just take, here's your wage. Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
I've known people even going into, not really high level jobs where they've said, well, I was making this at this other place. Is there any way I can get another 50 cents an hour? And they've gotten it. Little things like that. Even in crappy jobs, some people have been able to negotiate, 50 cents, $1, maybe even a couple bucks more an hour, or if it's a salary, maybe even few more thousand per year. It doesn't hurt to do it, because the worst they can say is no. And then you can accept that amount.
That's exactly right. And and a lot of people, I think people who are going for jobs are more in a driver's seat than they used to be.
Oh, nowadays, right now,
to a certain degree.
This is an employees market.
Yeah, and I can definitely remember. I guess it's the old school in me that when I would hire instructors, and I don't know how many staff I hired over the years of being in that position of having to do hiring and stuff like that. But one of the things I would look on their resume for was their longevity with companies and stuff. That means nothing today. That means absolutely nothing today. Right?
Yeah, it does. And and look at what Gary just mentioned, how just talking to his internet provider, he got $28 off a month. And that's what I did. I told my mother once, she hated how much she was paying for the internet. And I said, look, call them up. Tell them you are about to cancel because there's a better deal somewhere else. And, even find a couple of introductory deals that are out there and tell them what they are. And half the time they'll match them. So it doesn't hurt to try, even with things like that. I mean, even if it's only for a year, it's like, okay, well, I'll get this big savings for a year, then I'll call them back again next year and see if I can get another one, or otherwise I'll just go to one of these other introductory deals.
Well, I remember calling Bell. I think this is when we were in Kitchener, and I had a beef with them and stuff. And I said, how come you're moving me to a plan, or the plan is this much, and yet when you brought me on this plan, it was, I don't know, $20 or $30 less a month. Well, that was an introduction plan, and so on and so forth, and just to basically get you in the door, and now we got you. I said, so if I cancel everything, wait a month and come back, I get the new deal. No, you have to be gone from Bell for 6 months. Then you're considered a new customer.
Oh,
So it's like, okay, well, most of the deals and the plans that are out there now are usually get this wicked deal for, as you said, like a year.
mm-hmm.
So you can jump around if it's a 6 month wait that you're out of the Bell system for 6 months and go back in, you can jump around like that. I don't think there's anything that they're saying about how many times you can do it. You see, problem is we have Bell, we have Rogers, we have Cogeco,
Mm-hmm.
Shaw, Virgin, Execulink. I mean, there's a couple more that have come on board, but compared to the United States, we are way behind the time, and that's why I think that it's so competitive down there, that they can jump and that they just say, okay.
Well, I mean, we had one good thing that happened recently. The CRTC have basically instructed the big cable providers to lower the rates of their wholesale lines. So this means that all of these other little companies that say use Rogers or Bell, they'll get charged a little bit less for access. So you might actually see some really interesting deals pop up on some of the resellers.
Yeah. I mean, and there's, unfortunately, you can't. Well, you see, we can't do it here, but in the States, I know that our old the people that we were renting from, they could jump from power company to power company and save huge money down in the States. And it's like, yeah, we can't do that up here. There's just we don't have that availability to be able to jump and save that kind of money. It's almost monopolized up here, and it's like, and that's what kind of, I mean, yeah, okay, we get free healthcare and we have this and that, but at the same time, it's like we really get screwed with our services.
I mean, we got, most people here, I think, only have one power company. So
yeah,
it would be nice to have a whole bunch of different power companies. I mean, I'm going to get a charge out of each of them, but I mean, it doesn't matter. They're there for the taking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here you've got two options, really. You've got your main power company, or you can throw a bunch of solar panels up on your house.
Well, and I'm seeing more of that. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see more roofs in the neighborhood having the solar panels on. And it's not, I watched this one guy, Raspberry Rock, Russell, and he's got 9 panels on his roof, and I think he owned a company or something like that was solar panels. He still is part of it to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And during his videos, he will go out and he'll say, well, I got this much watts, and I'll get this long duration in it. Worst comes to worst, he has a Generac generator he throws on. He's only running 600 square feet in a cabin.
Did he say how much it was, though, to install it and buy it and everything?
No, he did not. I have not got to that part in his videos. And I don't know.
It's expensive.
Well, yeah, I do know that. Yeah, I know. Who was it? One of our friends, or one of my friends, had done it, and they were down. I think they were down in the Simcoe area, sort of the Port Dover area, and it cost them up front like 15 grand. Am I right? Maybe 15 or 30 grand. They sidestepped because of what it was and the type of energy and who was backing it. They really didn't get balked at for a loan because they kind of knew it was kind of a foolproof system. So the banks were for sure, we'll lend you the money for it, and they were making, I don't know, a couple of grand off of this, self-sustaining. Like it's at what point, if you see China and Russia, and they're over there clinking champagne glasses and stuff like that, and what was the term that China what's his face the Chinese leader was quoted as saying, China is ready to step in and serve as the power of the world now, or something to that degree. And I thought, holy shite.
Oh yeah.
What are we getting to here?
What's that?
What are we getting to?
Well, yeah. I mean, I see. With China, I don't think China wants war, but I do think that they sort of want to use whatever they can to sort of put themselves in a kind of a, I don't know if it's whether put them on a pedestal in front of the rest of the world, where they sort of look to China as the big power or whatever. But I don't know. Right now, we kind of have to still get through the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, and I don't think that's ending anytime soon.
Well, I thought that was the purpose of those guys meeting, was for China to draft up a somewhat of a treaty and a ceasefire.
Ukraine's not going to accept it, and that's the thing. I mean, you got to have both sides accept it, and Russia will only accept it if they keep some of the land they've taken. So, and Ukraine is adamant that they want every single piece of land back.
Yeah.
And this thing is just escalating, because I mean, now you've got Poland and is it Slovakia? Whatever, some other country giving a bunch of jets to them. It's like, holy banana.
Helicopters. Slovakia is giving them helicopters.
Oh, helicopters, and they're going to have helicopters and jets. They've already got tanks there, and there's big tank fights going on now. It's like,
well, and it's these UN countries that start to get involved, and it's like,
and that's the thing. I mean, I hate to see what Russia has done to Ukraine, but at the same time, we got to be a little bit careful with the stuff we're giving Ukraine, only because I would personally, if I was running a country, I would be like, we'll help you in any way we can with defensive weapons. But once you start giving them weapons that can attack Russia, then it gets to the point where they're fighting a de facto war for you. And that, to me, is a form of escalation. At least I see it that way.
Yeah, that would be a NATO-funded war then.
Yeah.
In the end, if it's offensive weapons, right? So,
don't wars normally get us out of recessions?
A big war will. Well, World War II actually got us out of the Depression. Because it was basically Hitler came along and started ramping up his military, started, turning that economy wheel, and that kind of kicked the world into a very productive state, because once they're making all these weapons, everybody else is like, okay, look at what Germany's doing. We better start making weapons and be prepared. So yeah, that did kick. Probably the only good thing Hitler ever did was end the Depression, but I'm sure there could have been a better way to end it than making weapons of war. Because that was, as we all know, that story didn't turn out too well.
And that's the interesting thing, Ken. You have you did on your stream. Who is that guy from Germany?
Oh, Max. Yeah, Max.
Max, and he was going on about, he wasn't very positive about, having to keep people warm and this and that and that and this, and yet we really haven't heard much about that over the winter as being a problem.
But that's because it wasn't a bad winter.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank God, because I think a lot of things, this, I'm thinking this could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we had a bad winter in Europe, you wouldn't have seen that oil slump that we've had.
No.
Because it created a surplus of oil. That's how good the winter and how mild the winter was for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now there is next winter, and next winter could be bad.
you have a crystal ball in front of you, and you say, okay, Russia and the Ukraine tidy it up. They end it.
Mhm.
What's the next confrontation? What's your guess?
Um, I think I think China I think China wants Taiwan. And
And why
they're
is that bad?
fighting well because the US has pledged to protect Taiwan. So
And
and well,
Taiwan is the largest
Chip
supplier
manufacturing.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
there's
of
that as well.
semiconductor. Oh, we'll be done. We'll be if China takes them, we're done.
Well, have you noticed that there's been a bigger emphasis on starting to make chips in America?
Why does it take something like this to figure this stuff out? Why do people, we have
Mhm.
all these smart people in smart places with all these HDs behind their name and stuff like this, and all these engineering degrees that can figure the stupidest stuff out, and yet they can't foresee that when someone has a hold on a part of the economy or a part of a product or something like that, if something goes wrong over there, we're screwed.
It's
It's
not
the
it's
cost.
not the engineers and it's
It's
not the
the
smart
cost.
people's fault. It's the politicians.
Well, that's what I mean.
Take, for example, the pandemic. A couple of years before the pandemic, they ran a giant mock pandemic with some of the smartest people in the world, and they identified all the mistakes that came up. And when we hit the real pandemic, that pandemic repeated pretty much every single mistake that had been identified. That
Yeah,
the
because
smart people were saying these are the things you don't want to do, and we did every single one of them.
didn't someone throw the binders out with all that information in it?
Oh, there may have been somebody who was very anti-science in the U.S. at that time, but
Uh-huh.
it was the world. I mean, most of the world made the same mistakes. Even the fact that they'd been identified, you'd think they would be like, okay, oh, you know what? In the giant mock study, these were mistakes. Let's try to avoid them. But no, they just
So we have created NORAD, we have created the United Nations, all because of history, correct?
correct.
We've just gone through what so we've gone through the Spanish flu, we've gone through SARS, we've now gone through COVID. I'm sure there's stuff in between that those are the ones that I remember.
Well, there was also an
And
avian flu as well.
right. And we God help us if we don't have a plan in action like a NORAD or a United Nations or something in place for next time because the NORAD only serves the purpose, in my opinion, of a defense when we need it. And yet we fund it to keep it lights on 24/7,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right? And it's like, why are and I get we can dumb this down to the simplest level and say we have shortages here, we have shortages with doctors and nurses and PSWs and this and that. True. At
yeah,
what point does someone just grab someone by the neck and say, "You've told us this for a decade, and yet you've done nothing about it"?
right. Well, I mean, I wouldn't really lump NORAD in with that list because we kind of
I'm
need
using
to.
it as an example. It's just an
Yeah,
example. We have something that we use in an in if this happens type of scenario, but we don't use it every day. We don't call that to action every day. Well, that we know of.
yeah. Well, one of the things, I mean, I think the big issue with the UN for one is giving any country veto power kind of defeats the purpose of a world government. So when the entire world or most of the world wants to condemn Russia attacking Ukraine and wants to put a resolution against it, and Russia has the ability to just veto it,
Mhm,
what does that do? That doesn't accomplish anything.
mhm,
So I mean, that to me is the only real issue with the UN is you want to get rid of all the veto powers,
mhm,
turn it into a real world government, and give it a little bit more power.
mhm.
If and I know the conspiracy theories, the conspiracy folks right now are going, no, no, don't give them a world government power status. But I mean, right now it's more or less, it's just like the UN saying, now you, and it doesn't really do anything. So if you want a world government, you need to give it some amount of power. You need to make it something functional that works.
Yeah, but someone will screw it up.
Yeah. I mean, there are aspects of it that do work. Like, for example, when UN sends in peacekeepers in some places where there's, just a lot of violence, that has worked in the past in some cases. And interestingly enough, the idea of using peacekeepers came from Canada. So that's kind of a neat little thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, who was I talking to the other day? And they said, the reason we are losing healthcare staff out to places like BC, where they're paying you an exorbitant amount of money, paying for you to stay there and paying your room, your food and stuff like that. And it's like, how come we don't hear about that coming back in Ontario doing that and luring people in by saying, we're going to pay you this crap load of money and we're going to put a roof over your head and we're going to do this and that. We do it for our politicians. Why are we not doing it for people to keep us alive?
No, I know. I mean, if we did it, then you'd have more doctors and nurses in Ontario, obviously.
That's right.
Or even worse, if you go to the Maritimes, it's even worse there than it is here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a situation where, like, how do you fix something that's broken so badly? One, because where healthcare is provincial, each province has the ability to pretty much set what they're going to do. And that makes it a little bit more difficult when one province provides better rewards for doctoring there than the other provinces. So it's almost like, and it'll never happen, but if you could federalize healthcare in some way, at least, so that way if you have a doctor in Toronto, they're going to make the same as the doctor in Vancouver and the doctor in Halifax.
Ooh.
I know, it would be a tough pill to swallow.
Isn't that communism?
Not really.
Socialism?
Not if it's a federal wage. If it's a federal wage, then, hey, if you're in Canada, this is what you make.
Ooh.
And obviously you'd make more for specialties and things like that, but your base salary would be based on, whatever it's set at.
Yeah. I see Mary Claude saying that Ontario's luring the Quebec nurses, and the healthcare system here is a big joke. It's where was I reading it today? That is it. Quebec has now tabled their next budget with an emphasis on healthcare and education, and I just, these millions of dollars that's allocated to it. Like, I mean, last budget or 10 budgets ago, didn't we have a whole whack of money put into healthcare education?
Well,
where'd it go?
And another idea is, if you really wanted to keep things provincial, you could create like a special bursary loan where you could say, okay, let's first of all expand how many people we can accept in our medical schools. And what we'll do is we'll pay for your medical school if you provide X number of years, like maybe 10 years of service within the province. If you decide to leave, you're more than welcome to, but then you have to pay, back all the tuition that the government paid for. So that way it keeps people in,
Okay, but the person says, yeah, I'm going to do this. They go and they get enough training that they know they can get the remainder of it somewhere else. They get lured down to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going after them? Who's going to chase that person down to Australia for the money?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's what you'd have to deal with. I mean, there's probably going to be cases like that, but I think in most cases, I think a lot of people aren't going to just run off and leave the country. You will have the occasional one that probably does.
Mm-hmm.
But, if it's someplace like the US, you might have better chances of trying to recuperate the money from them.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, all of a sudden, where all of their family is in Canada, if they ever returned, you could get them.
Yeah, true.
So, I think, I don't think you're going to have too many people try to completely just sort of run away with with their training per se. Not to say there won't be any, but I think the overall benefits of having a program like that,
Yeah.
where you've now got a lot of doctors who are tied into specific provinces, and you could even micromanage it more and say, okay, well, if you want this bursary, this here is the location. Like maybe they might have to serve in a rural area for so long or something.
OPP does it.
What's that?
OPP sends their new recruits and their officers way up north usually. You do your time up.
You do something like that with the medical, and I mean, the thing is, think of how many smart cookies are out there that would make great doctors, but they just simply can't afford it. So you're getting these people, you're getting that resource, and you're getting that resource put into the system, and it's kind of improving the whole healthcare system.
Well,
Now, you could even do a similar thing with the nurses as well, because where we have a shortage of nurses. So, it's just a thought.
Yeah, I know. Dan says they've changed the way you see a doctor where I am now. Instead of the doctor I've been seeing for years, I now see a team on rotation, not personable at all anymore. And it's true. You go into these family medicine clinics and you don't know who you're going to get. I agree with that. And I think, Dan, that I'm kind of desensitized to, it's not the local, it's not the personalized situation anymore with our physicians. It hasn't been for ages because, I mean, it's a matter of what are we going to give? Do we want that personalized relationship, or do we want to just get the hell in there and see someone and get this freaking thing figured out?
Well, here's the thing, though. When I had my infection, I saw a doctor in Vancouver through telehealth. So it's that simple. It's like, and plus, I mean, because TELUS now has this health thing. It's covered by OHIP, at least in Ontario.
Oh, yeah?
And, yeah, it's just like I could get an appointment within 3 days. I just sit here at my desk, talk through the phone. He writes me a prescription. I can even have the pharmacy deliver it. Like, I don't even have to leave the house to see a doctor.
Interesting.
Now, obviously, if you have something really serious, they may send you out to a blood lab or something to get tests and things like that. But, you can do the whole thing mostly. Like, quite literally, the amount of time I saw my doctor for, well, this doctor, maybe 10 minutes. So it was just a quick 10-minute little call. Took no time out of my time. I didn't have to hustle and go to a doctor's office and wait for an hour and then come home. It was just an appointment, bang, boom, done. Simple.
Interesting.
And even if you have a family doctor, you can still use something like that. Just go to your family doctor if it's something serious, but if it's something simple, like you just need a prescription and you know exactly what it is and your symptoms are clear cut. Just use something like the TELUS healthcare thing, or whatever they call it. It's a simple app. Bang, boom, done. Now, and that's beautiful. Like they do this here, but Nova Scotia, when I was there, you couldn't do it because it wasn't covered. So you could do it, but you would be paying out of pocket to do it. But I think because of the pandemic, I think a lot of places are now saying, yeah, plus that and then the healthcare crisis. I mean, when you got so many people without family doctors, I mean, here's the thing. If you don't have a family doctor, do you want to actually go to a walk-in clinic and pretty much spend half a day there? Especially if all you need is a prescription?
Well, and this is why they're now starting to give some of the authority back to the pharmacists in the simpler, 7 or 8 cases and stuff like that. And I think you're going to start to see, with the influx of the technology that we have in our Apple smartphones and the ability to, let's face it, it may come down to a fact where I got to do blood work on you. And it's like, well, we're going to prick your finger here and they're going to get just enough, like a diabetes test or something like that. You know what I mean? And they're going to have just enough information and just that amount of blood to zip zoop and done. And it's like, that's what we're getting to. It's just like, it's sort of I don't know, comparable to the fact of, if we don't have the employees to man and I'm going to get to something really neat in a minute, restaurants, or if we don't have them to man to work in I shouldn't say man, but work in the warehouses and stuff, we're going to go computerized. We're going to go robotics and stuff like this. And this is going to spill into, you watch, it's going to be a little bit longer of a trek to do this in the medical and the health profession, but you're going to get there,
Oh, you will, for sure.
You're going to get there.
I mean, and the technology is growing. Like, well, look at the next Apple phone that's coming, or Apple Watch. You're going to be able to do, it's going to be able to test your sugar for you without a prick. So that's not a bad thing. So I mean, just think how many people who have the new Apple Watch when it comes out, that all of a sudden they realize, oh, my sugar's really high, and they discover they're pre-diabetic. Or
you're talking about Apple Watches. You want to hear? I had a client today, and he says, "Hey, I got a new phone." I said, "Oh, whoop-de-doo." He says it's the new Samsung Galaxy, and it looks like this, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's got a shape like this. It's not like that, but it's right. Like this, right? You get, what he does is he opens it up, and it opens up. It books open like that, and it becomes this. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And then he shuts it, closes it, and he can use just the outside as a normal thing like this. And it's like, okay, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if Apple comes out with something similar.
All right. We're talking about replacing humans with technology. Now, hang on a second here. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Okay, I don't know if this is going to work. Bear with me.
See, I'm almost half expecting you to reach up and pull off part of your face like a Maskatron from like the old $6 Million Man Move show.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember Maskatron, but
okay, hang on. Hang on, here it comes. So, I hope this is going to work. Okay. So, can you see this?
Yeah, I just have to move my window over because it's behind the camera. Now I can.
Do you have any idea what you're looking at?
An Orion star.
Yeah. Do you have any idea what it is?
A scanner, maybe?
Nope. Nancy brought it home.
Oh.
It's a robot.
Okay.
There you go, folks. Live in my house, a robot.
What does it do?
Oh. Hang on a second here. Well, let me show you what it does. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work. Now, if you get your hands on your volume, because I don't know how the volume's going to come through. It was really loud when this happened, so
okay.
Bear with me. I've warned you. Here we go. Hang on.
Is that like Jesus. Japanese?
I don't know. Okay, so
it's like a robot giant.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know how you remember when Nancy had brought on Cable Labs and all this and that, and all the freak I get rid of this stupid thing now. Go away. That's you. That's wait a minute. How come you are add to stream? I don't want. Oh my God, it's gonna go again. Dear God, make it stop. Add to stream, remove from stream. There we go. So this, yeah, and I just touched a button on it. This, Nancy's got the Toronto Food Show for Gordon Food Service. I don't know what this thing's called.
Do you put like food on it and
it's a serving bot. That's a serving bot. I've seen them before on YouTube.
she's showing me the menu, and the menu has, you can program the different floors, you can program the different tables. This will, so that display you saw, that will roll into someone's room, into a room, and Zoom with their family for someone who is lonely or can't get out of bed or whatever the case is. So there you have the first generation of robots that is going to be used in healthcare.
Very cool.
Neat, huh?
Yeah.
And yes, it gives you food, Ken.
I know it does. I seen they showed something like that on a YouTube video. It's a server that goes around to your tables. Yeah, you put the food on it, and it knows exactly what table to go to.
Yep.
And you just take your food off it.
I want a robot, but that's not how I pictured it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, it's first generation stuff, and let's face it. I mean, there's going to be, they'll advance that to where it's a real person coming around or something like that, because you've got to actually put it in front of people. It's not like a moving sushi bar.
Although sushi is good.
Yeah, but there's always something fishy about it.
Well, sometimes.
Ken, fishy.
Huh?
No, thanks for the backup again there, buddy.
It was like he was like one of those things, but out of water.
He's still in his car.
No, my dogs are barking because the fucking wife left them outside.
Left them outside?
Yeah, she has this habit where she'll let the dogs out, and then she forgets to put them back in.
Well, why didn't she let them back in?
She has a habit of that.
No, but what is she doing that she can't let them back in?
She's working. She came outside on an extra break.
On an extra break?
Yeah, you gotta like that, eh? Extra breaks. Don't just get a break, you get an extra break. And then she let the dogs out, and then she went back to work and totally forgot to let dogs back in.
Oh, dear God. Well, that's what you're there for. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got looking forward to this week from you, Candace?
Tons of stuff. Tons. Tomorrow is deep dive battle between Manulife and Sun Life. Then we got the live stream on the weekend, and finally have the ETF video coming out this weekend. I was going to do it last weekend, but things were running out. Well, yeah, I actually had a thing I had to go to on St. Patrick's Day, so I just didn't have time to make it.
Okay.
Yeah, then we'll be back here again next week. Same old.
Do you have any plans of doing any stuff with like a shared podcast with oh my God. What's the dude's name? You've done one with him before. Dave.
There's a couple people.
Scott.
Okay, Scott. Yeah. Yeah, actually we're looking to do another one. Like we've done one on his channel. We're probably going to do one on my channel. I think he wants to do another one on his channel, but just a matter of the two of us getting our times together.
Hey, I'm interested to know, have you been watching the views or the hits on your old tax videos?
Yeah, they've gone up a bit.
Have they? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered.
Yeah, like one video that's picked up a little bit of traffic has been my walkthrough on Wealth Simple Tax. So yeah, they're still picking up some stuff. I didn't do any new ones this year just because the ones from last year I thought were still relevant.
Sure.
So
sure. Yeah.
Actually, one video that's surprised me is I've been getting a lot of traffic on my old age security video. And sometimes I come in and it's funny. I'll come in and there'll be a question for me in the comments, and I'll be like, "Holy banana bread! I got to go research this."
Really?
Well, the other day I had a question about what was it? It was like, my wife has been put into a old age home against our will. We had no choice. So what happens to my GIS and my OAS and hers because of that? And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I have no idea. So I went, I did about 20 minutes of research and found out. Then I came back and I gave the guy the answer and I gave him some links and stuff. And
Yeah.
so now I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of content within the whole GIS sector that I could easily just do a video on GIS. And I probably should, considering how many hits I've been getting on the OAS one. So one of these Saturdays, we're going to have to come back out with a GIS one, just straight up GIS and all of the different qualifications and little things about it. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. That's
kind of an interesting thing, but you know what? That's the thing. People, if the people want it, I'm going to throw it out there for them.
Well, it's good. That's good. And Ken, you're just flowing with the wind.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a launch on Friday for OSATs. They're finally going to launch, which is really cool. If it pops off, it's going to be very interesting. They're trying to be the first ones to actually create a Bitcoin ordinal on the BTC chain, be able to wrap it, bring it back to ERC20, and split up the coin and make a contract out of it. And then they want to build a launch pad and have a vault where they will store a whole bunch of BTC ordinals on it for people that just want to have one, or they want to start a project. So if you want to start a project, they're looking to wrap it, build your contract, and launch it with you. And they're also looking to actually build their own blockchain. It'd be the first ordinal, a BTC ordinal blockchain on the ERC20 network. And then there's possibly another launch next week of another token I'll talk about later.
Oh, there's one other thing I've decided on. Gonna do the Hot Ones challenge for the 2,000 subs.
Oh, nice.
I ordered the season 20 10 sauces, so it takes about a month to get them, so that's fine because I anticipate hitting 2,000 in June. So,
oh my God,
I'm gonna do that. So I'll do each sauce and then I'll answer a finance question as it keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter.
Oh, I've got a bad feeling about this.
So do I.
So,
if
anybody wants to know more about OSATs, my at freaking Oracle's right there. You can hit me up on Twitter, and I can put you in contact with the project.
Cool. And are you talking about it? You said it's launching on Friday?
It's supposed to launch Friday at like 4 Eastern. So I probably will be talking about it Friday night.
Okay.
Find out how it went. So
yeah.
I keep interrupting, but another thing I'm doing in April. Dividend Dave is actually putting together some kind of a girls in finance video, and I think there's 4 of us, and we're doing it sometime early April. So that'll be interesting.
Who are the 4 girls?
I don't know.
Oh.
He asked if I could do it, and he told me there'd be 4 of us, and I was like, okay. And I haven't really looked back because I've been so busy. But
I don't know of any other females that are in finance.
Dave knows, I think, every female in finance. I mean,
yeah, he knows a lot of people.
Yeah, he does. He has a lot of connections.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so that'll be fun.
God willing, we'll be back here again with absolutely nothing to say next week as well.
Could have a world war to talk about by then. You never know.
World war. Oh, listen to the optimist there. Holy crap.
Yeah. No, there's always something to say. Like, I always got tons of things to say. I just go with the flow, though, right? Because it's your show.
Yeah. Well, Anyway.
It's like when you run out of something and you're in the middle and you're just sitting there and you're like, I don't know what
I
to
ran
say.
out of stuff a couple of times, and I'll tell you, my male counterpart wasn't very backy-uppy tonight.
Hey, whatever you two do, that's not to do with
it
me.
didn't sound very well, did it?
No, it didn't.
It didn't very good at all. It didn't sound family level quality show.
Boom, chicka, chicka, bow, wow, bow, wow, boom, chicka,
But
Oh,
it's
wow.
2022. You guys do you.
Candace, that's
Oh,
la la la.
say good night, Gracie.
Oh dear.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and Ken and I will figure this out, and Candace will referee.